And it's time to talk New York Jets football once again with Matt O'Leary, who's joining us with his own YouTube channel. As you can see back there, right behind him, Just Jets Podcast. Is that the name of it? It's Jet Report, right?
Just Jets podcast. I did a show, Jet
Oh, did
Report,
you?
back in the day a little bit too.
Oh,
Yeah.
so you've actually changed it. So now it's Just Jets Podcast. See, I have to know that. Okay.
Yeah, that's all right.
No, it's because I have the description to your channel. People should know that is in the link is in the description, so you can go right to your channel, and I'll make sure it's worded correctly this time, including I think the ticker, which I'm using right now, but I can switch that anyway. Matt, good talking to you. What a draft, huh? Not like last year's, but still entertaining.
Absolutely. Last year was definitely a high profile one, but this year, I live for the draft, so it's still a fun 3 days.
Yeah, and it was a lot more fun too, in a weird way, on day three with all of the trades, which I was happy to see because there was a point in the draft where I was like, you know what, we really don't have a lot of picks this year, and 1 year is fine, but you start doing 2 years when it's like 5 and 5, stuff like that, and that's not really the way you want it. And I was like, it would be nice if you could trade down a couple. Like, you could see the Jets were getting close to their picks, and I was like, yeah, it was nice if they could actually trade down here and get and he did it twice. He added another couple of picks. I like to see that. Everybody, of course, wants to talk about the first pick, and I think it was kind of, in my opinion, kind of humorous. I guess if you're not doing your homework and research about McDonald and the player they selected. Oh, they were supposed to get the lineman, and the Patriots screwed the Jets, and Joe Douglas was beside himself and didn't know what to do. And I guess I got to draft a guy that I had pegged at 30 or something, which is completely ridiculous. But that's just the way people want to spin it. Fact is, Jets got themselves an edge rusher, which we did talk about last month, something they needed to keep an eye on, especially with the fact that Carl Lawson may not be here after the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And while, maybe that wasn't where a lot of people thought the Jets were going to go, if you know Robert Saleh, you know how much he loves his defensive linemen, and just having another, guy off the edge with incredible speed. And maybe this isn't a pick, as you kind of hinted at, for more this year, but Carl Lawson might not be here beyond this year. Bryce Huff is also going to be on an expiring deal as well, just on that 1 year tender. So there's no guarantee he's back. So the Jets get young and fast at a premium position like edge. I'm not going to, go nuts over it or complain. I wanted an offensive lineman, but once all of them went off the board, I was curious to see where the Jets would go. And Will McDonald being the pick at 15, they obviously have a plan in place for him.
Yeah, and when you have that defense that is all about the edge rush scheme, you have to have more than what they had. And, sure, Johnson, he's the big one, but Clemens is there, and that's fine. You got those two guys last year, but you need more. And especially since they did not, even to this point, fill Rankin's shoes, his role. That is still the main kind of hole I'm looking at that may cost them at some point, maybe not. But the fact that they were able to add an edge rusher, I think, kind of maybe masks that potential hole, which, of course, you can just slide what's his name in from defensive end.
John Franklin
Myers, and of course they added those two veterans from Seattle. And okay, so I also thought it was interesting because once that happened, then all of a sudden it's like, well, all right, we got to get our offensive lineman then at some point, right? And I think then you saw like Jet fans probably starting to get a little bit nervous. Because not just they go after, not just because they go after the edge rusher, but okay, they got Tippmann and that's nice and he's a center, but then when they went after Warren, the whole design of what Joe Douglas and the staff was doing was starting to make more sense. That okay, now you look at it, they've got two extra young linemen, especially one in Warren, who a lot of people felt could have been a much higher draft pick if it wasn't for his injury.
Yeah, no doubt. I think they absolutely added depth to the offensive line, which, yes, they weren't able to get one in the first round, but landing one in the second round in the center. But you bring up a really good point with adding Warren there. And I think if he didn't get hurt and he did play a full season this past year, there's no doubt he would have went higher than what he did. And, they kind of did something similar last year, adding Max Mitchell as a developmental kind
Yes.
of tackle. And same could be said about Warren. He has the potential. He doesn't have to necessarily play this year with guys in front of him, but Mekhi Becton's a question mark, and Dwayne Brown at his age is going to be a question mark. So you want to have the reinforcements there if need be. But I think in a perfect world, he doesn't get on the field this year, and it's kind of a red shirt developmental year for him.
You know what's nice is that for the first time that I can recall in a very long time, I look at that the number two guys. I look at that bench on the offensive line and the overall depth, and I am just wow. I have not seen the quality depth in a long time on that offensive line, and that is so refreshing. The days of bringing in the Feeneys of the world or the Greg Van Rottens of the world, and those are your top. That's it. That's what you have. Those you looked at that a couple years ago and you were like, oh, we got so much work to do. And even last year, it was like, and we saw it with all the injuries, and they paid for it. But Joe Douglas was like, I can't do that again. Absolutely cannot have that happen again. And now it's like they have 5 guys that you can turn to on the bench and feel like, okay, even if we have a rash of injuries, hopefully we won't. Like last season, we actually have talent that we could bring into the to the starting lineup.
100%. And like you mentioned, they saw it last year. It felt like their entire offensive line was hurt, and guys they were signing off the street were coming into play, whether it's, Cedric Boye or
Yeah.
Remmers, I think, came in
Yes.
at one point late in the season. So, this stuff happens. And yeah, I think it was wise of Joe Douglas to kind of set himself up for, not having to be in a panic situation like that. And, hopefully the injuries, as you mentioned, doesn't, come up nearly as often on the offensive line this year.
And then they added Billy Turner too. I was like, oh, great. Awesome.
Yeah, starting
Yeah.
experience, familiar with the offense. I like that too.
Yeah. Okay, so overall, what'd you think about the draft? Grades are that's not something I think most of us really care about, but marketing wise, it's important. I'm not sure if you gave a grade, but what did you think about the draft?
Yeah, I agree. The grade that's most important is 2 to 3 years down the line, how the class is looking. But I always kind of find it interesting to see what the overall thought was right after the initial thought right after a draft class to how it pans out. So I was I thought it was average. I thought it was an okay draft, like a B minus kind of grade. I thought that they added some quality depth. There's not going to be, at least in my opinion, that star like a Sauce Gardner or Garrett Wilson,
Probably
Brees Hall,
not. Yep.
Jermaine, but I think they, did a pretty good job, plugging some holes and adding some much needed depth. So I thought it was solid.
That's a matter of fact. That's the exact. My co-host Jan Levine. We talked. I think Sunday after the draft, and he threw it at me, knowing that we were in same thing. This is something for down the road, but he just cornered me, and that's what I said. I said B minus. So we're on the same page.
So,
All right.
yeah.
So is there a draft pick that besides the top couple of guys, is there either a mid to later pick or even a free agent, a rookie that you like the most, or a couple of guys that you kind of really like the most?
Yeah, I personally can't wait to see Izzy Abanikanda on the field, the running back out of
Yeah.
Pitt. I think his speed is just electric. Whenever the ball's in his hands, it feels like something good happens. Had a ton of touchdowns last year, and honestly, we don't know what Brees Hall's going to be coming
right.
back. I loved him last year. We probably would have been defensive rookie of the
Yeah.
year. He stayed healthy, but an ACL is no joke, and he might have to start the year a little bit slow on a pitch count, so to speak. They're not going to run him 20 times a game early on in the year, probably. So, I think finding him where they did was great value, and his speed and just another home run hitter in this batch of weapons, I think is going to be really fun to watch.
Yeah, especially when you have Aaron Rodgers now throwing the football. Defenses, that's who they're going to be targeting. Used to be, let's just bury that run and force them to pass the ball. Now they got to concern themselves with Aaron Rodgers first. and that should make things even that much better for the running game. So yeah, so I was looking over too your because some of your recent videos, and we'll go over all of them because they're relevant to our conversation. A couple of them. Uh, One was your 53-man very early roster prediction. And so I like to do this because this gives us an opportunity to have debates here. All right. So you went with, and now look, a, a rookie free agent is always going to make the roster. I mean, especially if you're Joe Douglas, you're going to get at least one or two of these guys. And it looks like Brownlee is your guy, which means you do not trust in Denzel Mims. Now that Mims, by the way, will get his opportunity if he stays healthy and he looks the part. Will get his opportunity with a Hall of Fame quarterback to throw the football to him. So no more excuses, Denzel. Training camp, preseason, are you for real? You don't believe he's going to show up.
Yeah, I think obviously the getting a new quarterback in here and a new offensive coordinator may help him. But as you mentioned, there's always a UDFA that makes it, and there's always that surprise cut. So it's a little outside the box. But what I like with Brownlee, or I guess a couple of reasons why I went with him as the UDFA, they gave him a decent chunk of change for a UDFA, guaranteed money, which is always something that catches my eye with these things. And then number two is he has special teams value, which Denzel doesn't play
That's
on
a good
special
point.
teams. So
Yes.
if you're gonna carry six wide receivers, your sixth wide receiver, I think at least should have some special teams value. So if that's what it comes down to, they're similar in build, so they would make sense that they stylistically play a similar kind of game. This, maybe the new staff wants to go a different direction. I understand that, Denzel is a second round pick, and he's going to get, some leeway here, but for whatever reason, it just hasn't clicked yet. Maybe this is the year it finally does, but as we mentioned here, sometimes these UDFAs, there's some surprise additions and some surprise cuts, and that's one where I thought we could see it happen.
Okay, yeah, because look, Mims is going to have to light it up, no question, and he's going to have to make it tough to the point that they may even be in a situation where they like Brownlee, they don't want to maybe lose him some way, and they go, all right, you know what, maybe we'll trade Mims. Maybe we'll try to get something from it, even if it's a sixth rounder or a seventh rounder. Let's reap something from that second round pick, especially if he winds up going off in a preseason game, maybe against a team that might be interested in him. Who knows? But that happens every year. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. I think it's just good because I know there are still some people out there who believe that the Jets may not have enough at wide receiver, which I just, what do you want? I mean, of course they could always have better players, but this is the deepest group of receivers I think I've ever seen the Jets have.
Yeah, I agree with you. Obviously, Garrett Wilson at the top is, already a bona fide number one receiver. But beyond that, I think between Lazard, Hardman, and Davis, those are all, pretty proven, nice complementary pieces in an offense. And, you add a veteran like Randall Cobb, who, yeah, he's nowhere near the guy that he was earlier on in his career, but it's someone that Rodgers trusts. It's someone who he, knows the offense and knows Hackett well. And let's be honest, that's probably an upgrade over what guys like Jeff Smith, who are on the bottom of this receiving depth chart, are, going to give you. So, they're a veteran unit and they might not be the flashiest or the top of the list, but I think it's at least an NFL league average wide receiver room. And I think it's more than enough to get by with.
I think what they probably just look at is they go, well, I look at the depth chart on our lads and we see McCall Hardman as slot and Cobb is the other slot. And well, that's not all that impressive. I think that's what they're probably looking at. And I also don't think that they really think that Corey Davis, because he has been injury prone and because of the fact that, yeah, I'm sure maybe even though having Garrett Wilson have such a big year, well, you can't have two of those guys blow out when your quarterback situation is all that great. But I think Corey Davis, if he has a healthy season, is going to prove people wrong. He's still a quality player, does a lot of the dirty work that people don't see. But again, having Aaron Rodgers throw the football there, I think people are going to realize, I forgot about Corey Davis.
Yeah, that's true. I agree 100%. Some of these guys, like even Garrett last year, having an offensive rookie of the year season with the quarterback play he had was just that much more impressive. But guys like Corey Davis, who maybe are a third or fourth option at the wide receiver at this point, I think it's only going to benefit him as well.
And then obviously the running back and tight end spots make a lot of sense. Carter Knight, the rookie, and also a tight end, the rookie, which I also think makes a lot of sense because as much as it appears they like the kid Kuntz, there's no way they're going to just let him go or be put themselves in a position to have to protect him, or of course have another team pick him up. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And what I also like though is that even at wide receiver, because you just mentioned Mims may have to go, even at running back maybe, but tight end too, is that if they have an injury, and injuries are always going to happen, that they have now a little bit of depth at each of those positions, that if just one guy were to go down for a few months or a few weeks, another guy can definitely step in and you're not going to lose a whole lot.
Yeah, absolutely. That's how often have we seen one wide receiver gets banged up and it's like the whole thing comes
Yeah.
crashing down.
Like last year.
Yeah, right. But you could see that with other positions that's happened before. But yeah, both running back and tight end, I like the depth there, and I'd like to see some more from Jeremy Ruckert this year. He's a rookie last year out of Ohio State. Was really a big fan of his game there. Didn't really play a whole lot last year, but really good blocker, and I think he's ready for a bigger role.
All right, now your offensive lineman. You have 9, and that's about right. And I think every one of those 9 that you talked about made perfect sense to me. So the one guy though that's not on your board, and this might mean the Jets might have to have 10 if they don't, if depending on injuries and depending on the rest of the roster, is Wes Schweitzer. So, because he's that type of veteran that could play multiple positions that you do want to have around. So that is going to be interesting to see because the young guys are going nowhere. So it does make sense. I agree with you. And I wonder whether or not it's going to be a Wes Schweitzer, Connor McGovern contest. That even could be something because Schweitzer's, I'm sure, making less than McGovern. I haven't checked, but that could be interesting.
Yeah, I wanted to keep when I was doing the offensive and defensive line is where I struggled the most because they are just so many bodies on both lines that it's hard to carry all the ones that you think are going to make, and that's ended up how it played out for me. And maybe I carried too many defensive linemen, going back and looking through this, but they like depth at both those spots. And it wouldn't shock me if Schweitzer did end up on this 53 man roster because of his versatility. But there's just so many, guys on both sides of the line. It's hard to put all the puzzle pieces together and keep it under 53.
Because did you have 11 defensive linemen?
Yes.
Okay, so that's probably where it is. It's possible that it's 10-10. And that would mean the odd man out is probably Tanzel Smart, which you could easily, I'm assuming you could still put him on the practice squad.
Yeah, you probably could. Salah's talked him up. Not that he doesn't talk up any of his guys. Seems to love every single one of his 53. But for whatever reason, that one stuck out to me where he might have a chance to make it. But yeah, 10 and 10, I could totally see 10 and 10. If it ended up being Schweitzer over Smart, I'm all for it. I think that would make sense.
Yeah. And look, hey, hopefully Smart, he knows he's going to have to play his butt off. And look, those 2 guys that they signed, they're veterans. Who's to say Tanzel Smart can't look almost every bit as, I mean, he's at that point in his career now. I mean, look, you're not a 1 or 2 year kid. You've been around now for this will be your 4th year, I believe, 3rd, 4th year. So it's time now for you to show whether or not can you be better than these veterans that we just signed. Because, hey, maybe we'll let one of those guys go. So I'm sure that's what they'd like to do. He's a lot smarter and he's younger. So we'll see how that works out. And we'll keep an eye on the kid, too, from Pitt. Chances are he's a definite practice squad candidate. But hopefully a kid like Alexander also makes the team. So that would be nice. All right. Now, taking a look at the linebacker spot, you were pretty short and simple, which you should be. Just 4, Sherwood making it along with Barnes. So that's potentially says goodbye to Najaldine. which it is time for Nigel Dean and both Sherwood to take that next step, especially Sherwood. I think he is the one that everybody is kind of looking at. That, come on. I mean, just like you said, they were talked up, and coach talked these guys up tremendously about their potential, and we haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, and I thought Sherwood. I forget which game it was, but Mosley came out for. It might have been against the Bills in the home game. That Mosley came out for a few plays, and Sherwood came in and looked all right. So, maybe he fills that linebacker 3 role. That'd be interesting to see. I also don't think it's off the table that maybe they bring back Quan Alexander to play that third linebacker role.
Could happen.
Which will just make this that much more challenging. Maybe you're trying to stick Barnes on the practice squad at that point, but. Sherwood's another one that they seem to really like and seems ready to take that next step for Nasruddin. Hasn't really shown a lot, and he's been injured too. So unfortunately, that comes into play when you're trying to make the bottom half of this roster.
And then in the secondary, I there's no way I can guess what they're thinking at the back end of that group. Because I'm even still surprised that Bryce Hall is still here. He was so bad in the preseason, so bad the first game. You were like, oh man. I mean, and then he was off the team and on the practice squad for a bit, and it was like, okay, he's still here. We know he's talented. Hopefully, it's the mental aspect of what burned him last year. He is over that because he's way too talented of a kid after he played so significantly that first year or two that, we don't want to see him go. But you have Tony Adams making it. That is the one name that sticks out. Is that because of special teams?
Yeah, I think it's special teams, and they don't really have that true free safety on this roster. And I think he might, because of his athletic profile, he might have the best chance of being that true free safety. Even though, like, as obviously right now on paper, Chuck Clark and Whitehead are the 2 best safeties, but they don't really have that guy who can roam deep, and maybe with his athleticism, that could be the role for him.
Yeah, and you would also think this is it for Ashton Davis. It was nice for him to get that game clinching interception against Cleveland, but I think he even played like 8 snaps in that game. So it's not like, it was like a game changing, defining situation. But unfortunately last year being healthy, it still hasn't worked out for him. So just like we said with Tanzel Smart, Denzel Mims, these 2020 guys, this is it. This is you either if you want to be a Jet or if you want to be a journeyman, this is going to be the training camp that's going to define you.
100%. And with Ashton, he does have special teams value, and maybe they do keep him around, but I don't love what I've seen from him in coverage, and when he comes down to make plays at the line of scrimmage, his pursuit angles are a little bit weird. He's just such a good athlete, and that's why I think the Jets drafted him, so early in the 3rd round, because insane athlete, track star at Cal, but football IQ I think is not quite there due to the limited experience, and unfortunately that shows up a little too much for me.
Yeah, it seemed like they drafted him, like you said, great athlete. We'll figure out a role for him. But I don't think they ever did or have. And it's like, okay, he's a good athlete, good on special teams, but he hasn't picked a spot. And it's a shame too, because he could have really been that guy that I still think we're missing. And I want to talk about that now, what you think is still missing, because I thought that they would have added that guy in the box, that kind of hybrid linebacker DB that could have been very beneficial to this defense because of the turnover situation was just so poor last year. I think in that middle of the field, that's where they come from. I don't think they added anybody, so that's a little bit of a concern for me. Again, the defensive tackle situation, they didn't add a young part there. I understand where they're going with the kicking game, going with veterans, but I would have liked to have seen them add a young punter in camp and see what you got. But I see where they're going there. And that's about it. I think most of my questions are on defense right now.
Yeah, for me, I think linebacker and safety are the 2 spots where I look at, and I'm not 100% satisfied with either of those rooms. For starting with safety, I mentioned it a little bit earlier, them not really having that true free safety. Both Chuck Clark and Jordan Whitehead are more, those strong safety. He'll come down and make plays at the line of scrimmage, but they're not going to be the guy who has 5 interceptions
Yeah.
because
We don't have a
they're
ball hawk back there. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, so I think that's the biggest thing that this defense is lacking. And then at linebacker, CJ Mosley's a solid linebacker, probably not worth his price point at this point in his career, and that contract was crazy to begin with. But a leader on this defense, a solid player. But after that, Quincy's very inconsistent,
Yeah.
and what is still, a lot to be proven there. So I would have liked to add something more at linebacker and safety, but something I always say to people who ask, I think the fans and myself included in this, I think we value linebacker and safety more than
Probably.
this
Like
regime
the old
does.
days. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Because they load up on defensive line. They have great corners. Their plan, I think at least, is we're gonna win on our pass rush and our shutdown corners, and they don't really care that safety and linebacker are the weaker spots on the defense.
Yeah, and you can't have it all, and we get that. And look, the defense is good enough right now, the way it looks, barring injuries, to be a Super Bowl defense. But we do need in order for that to happen, though, we need that pass rush to get better than last year, so we can create those turnovers. Because we were still top 5 defense when it was all said and done, but the turnover differential just killed us second half of the season.
Yeah, for sure. I would like to see this team take that next step and get create some more turnovers, whether it be with interceptions or looping this back to the draft. Something Will McDonald is really good at is forced fumbles on the quarterback. So that stuff matters. Getting your offense some extra possessions is really big. The defense was great last year, but they didn't do a good job of creating turnovers. And I think it just elevates them that much more if they're even league average there.
Yeah, that's the difference between being a really good defense and an elite defense. And that's what's holding us back so far. Another player I'd probably keep an eye on because of how good of a college career he had is the running back Travis Dye. I know he had some injury issues later in his career, went from Oregon to USC, but from what I hear, a very good teammate as well, type of guy you want in that room. So it's a nice insurance policy, maybe, if something happens to one of the top 4. So I'd keep an eye on him. And, as far as anybody else, we mentioned a few of them as it is. So are you going to get a chance? How far? Where do you live?
I'm out on Long Island,
Okay. Oh,
actually.
perfect.
I'm jealous of, well, yeah, I guess in a way. I'm jealous of the people in Jersey who live so close to the facility because I'm like 10 minutes from Hofstra where they used to practice, and I was there all the time. So I don't get to go to training camp as much as I used to in years gone by, but I'm going to try to get up there, this summer and get a close up look.
Yeah, got to do that. Got to definitely give your viewers some special. And this is the training camp to do it. Wow, what a training camp it's going to be. What a preseason it's going to be. And with our remaining minutes with you here, the schedule is next, which might be your next video. So. We've heard the leak about Black Friday. I got to admit to you, and maybe this is because of the fact that everything has been politicized now in this country. When they said Black Friday, the first thing I started thinking of is this some new holiday that they put together, for Black people because of everything that's going on. It's just like one of those, NFL kind of things. And I was like, well, yeah, I don't know. And then I realized with the date, and I went, oh, okay, that Black Friday. All right, good. Anyway, so that's a pretty good deal because it's not on Thanksgiving. So it's like a standalone kind of Friday thing, which is kind of cool. But what do you think about the rest of the schedule? You think we're going to get hammered with all these nationally televised games?
Yeah, I think they are going to be a team that you could be in prime time as many as 6 times this year, and I think that there's a strong chance that they are closer to that 6 number, if not right there. You mentioned the game on Black Friday. That's one. They play the Eagles, the Giants, the Chiefs. The other divisional games I think are all candidates to be put in prime time. And with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback now, this team's going to be a national story. People are going to want to check in and see how they're doing. There's a lot of expectations for this team, and we'll see if they're able to live up to it. But I'm excited with the spotlight going to be shining on them because unfortunately for the last decade or so they've been pretty irrelevant.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be feel nice to be relevant again.
Yeah, I think at some point, depending on how the season goes, we're probably going to be a little fatigued ourselves from it. But hopefully, they're playing well. The worst thing that could happen is they're not playing up to par, and then we got to keep like being on nationally televised games, and that's just I don't want to don't put us through that. But hopefully, it's going to be as good as we expect it to be. So I see that you are predicting week one giant Monday Night Football game. And do you think that and is that basically because of everything that it would mean with 9/11?
Yeah, I just think that would be a really I just think it'd be good for the city to have Jets Giants on the anniversary. I think they can do a nice like pregame ceremony kind of thing. And last year on Sunday was the season opener was on September 11th, and we've seen the teams play before on September 11th. But for them to go up against each other, both New York teams, maybe both out there on the field holding the flag with the anthem going, I think that'd be a really nice moment on a tough day for New York.
What would be really nice is that we actually, I know we have some tough games, but it'd be nice if we actually and Giants and all that, that would be great. But it would also be nice if we played a team that we would be like Washington or something like that. Can we get off to a good start, please? Can we just be 1-0? Can you just give us that? It always seems like we have these tough games to start off with, and we're always behind the 8 ball. So
yeah, I'm not. Listen, if you want to go old school, like high school homecoming, and give a cupcake game first, Texans, Commanders, something like that, I'm all here for it.
Yeah. All right. So let's see. You also have Dallas on Sunday Night Football, and there's a lot of people wondering about Thanksgiving, but that's over with now. So Dallas Sunday Night Football, that would make a lot of sense. I could definitely see a primetime Dallas game.
Yeah, that's just two big audiences. And, Dallas is on primetime a ton. They're, America's team, and the Jets, New York, the biggest media market. And with Aaron Rodgers, I think those are absolutely two teams who are going to have a, national appeal this year.
And then the other team in the defending champs of the NFC, Philadelphia, you think that could definitely also be, and that would be a home game. That could be a primetime game. I would say, though, that, you had Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the one where I'm thinking they're definitely going to have, they have the Dolphins. I still wonder whether or not they'll take another division game, like either Buffalo or New England.
Yeah, they could. I mean, for the Bills anyway, that they've been one of the better teams in the AFC. They've owned the AFC East the last few years. I wouldn't be shocked if they put, one of the Bills games in prime time. Both, Jet Bills games were really good, even last year with, Zach Wilson and Mike White starting. So I think that one would be great to see in a big spot too.
Which, if you had to pick one game to go to, which one would it be?
Man, I might go something a little bit on the cheap side, but like Washington or Atlanta. I want to go.
You want to blow out, potential blowout. Okay.
But exactly, I want to see a ton of points. I want to see the defense, wreak havoc against, a poor young quarterback, and just have some fun. Like last year, the Chicago game would have been, besides the rain, but I would have loved to be in the building for all those touchdowns and defense playing well. So yeah, I'd go to a cupcake one. I think.
I hear where you're coming from. You don't want to have those those stomach issues, feeling we're gonna win, and having to feel like that for the entire game and down to the fourth quarter and all that kind of stuff. So. Yeah, again, it's almost like this is still a dream, kind of, if you're a Jet fan, like, something's going to happen. We're going to go to war, aren't we? That's what's going to happen. We're going to go to war, or that depression they're talking about, that's coming. That they'll be here in August. Something is going to happen that we're not going to be able to enjoy ourselves this season with Aaron Rodgers as a quarterback.
Yeah, just always waiting for that other shoe to drop. It's tough, but hopefully that goes away
Yes,
at some point during the year. But man, just getting off to a fast start, I think would ease the tension.
it would. That's what we need more than anything. I agree. A fast start. All right, Matt. Appreciate your time as always. We'll hopefully get a chance to talk again. Definitely around training camp. I can't imagine there's going to be any more deals or anything significant regarding free agents or things like that, anything newsworthy. And it's probably a good thing that we probably don't get the opportunity to talk before then, because that's now we're at that point where no news is good news. So
Oh, 100%.
yeah,
Yeah, it's quiet time right now, which is okay. It's been a hectic few months. I think we'll take it before training camp.
Matt, appreciate it. Again, the link is in the description area of this video. You can check out Matt's channel, and we look forward to talking to you again right around just before preseason kicks off. Matt,
Yeah, I look forward to it. Thank you so much again for having
you
me.
got it, Matt.